We were in the middle of chapter 17, and we just completed the story. If you recall, Achitophel had given his advice to Absalom as the best way to go and attack David, and he actually had the better advice. But Hushai, who was there at behest of David, gave reasons to Absalom why Achitophel's advice was not good, and actually gave advice to David that the most important part of his advice was that he needed to gather a large army in order to battle David. Achitophel's premise was that David had just fled Jerusalem. He had been routed. He was in disarray. He was tired. He was depressed, and he was not going to be in any kind of situation that he would be able to successfully defend an immediate attack. And Achitophel was saying, I'll lead, a relatively small force. I'll attack right away. David is tired. And he was right, okay? But Hushai, number one, wanted to buy time. And number two, he said to Absalom, no, David would never be tired. He fights like a lion. He has always been and now he talks about it as like a bear, a mother bear whose cubs have been taken, like totally angry. And therefore, you have to take the time to gather a much larger force, because that's the only way you're going to defeat David. And again, as we said, the most important part of his advice is that it bought David time. And it bought David time so that he would go from the exhausted, depressed person to someone who would, as a result of circumstances, be able to fight the battle. And that's what hopefully we're going to start seeing today. But anyway, let's start at verse 15. So after this whole thing happened and Absalom agreed with Hushai, Hushai then sends word, okay? Hushai told the priests Tzadok and Eviatar, this is what Achitophel advised Absalom and the elders of Israel. This is what I advise. Now send it once and tell David. Okay, so you picture the geography here. David has left Jerusalem. He's gone east towards Jericho, and Tzadok and Eviatar are sent back by David before they leave the city to stay in the city, and they will be there not only to protect the ark, but they will be there to act as spies on behalf of David. Hushai is, of course, with them as well. So Hushai tells them what has happened so that David will know what the plan is. And then he says, do not spend the night now send it once and tell David, do not spend the night at the fords of the wilderness, but cross over at once. Otherwise, the king and all the troops with him will be annihilated. So the first thing he's saying to him is keep moving. Okay, I've bought you time, so keep moving. And he's basically saying cross the Jordan River. Jonathan and Achimaatz were staying at En Rogel, and a slave girl would go and bring them word, and they in turn would go inform King David, for they themselves dared not to be seen entering the city. So here we have an understanding. How was it that, we have a number of different people. We have Tzadok and Tzadok and Eviatar, okay, whose sons, Jonathan and Achimaatz, are actually the ones that are going to go and bring the word to David. And how did they get the word? Through this slave girl. Ein Rogel is a place just outside of Jerusalem towards the east. So we have Hushai, who's in the city, telling these priests, who then send word through a slave girl to the two sons, who then go and actually tell David. Verse 18, but a boy saw them and informed Absalom. They left at once and came to the house of a man in Bahurim, who had a well in his courtyard. They got down into it. So what exactly is happening? Someone saw Jonathan and Achimaatz leaving to go to report to David. And he told Absalom, they left at once that's the Jonathan Achimaatz. In other words, they realize they've been spotted, and so they're not waiting at En Rogel. They're moving, because they want to go in David's direction, but they also don't want to be caught by Absalom. So they come to a place called Bahurim. Okay, so first of all, I should have taken a map. The map that I've been using is a map that's only in Hebrew. Let me see if you can see this. Well, no, it's hard to see. It doesn't matter. You all have the picture of Israel in your mind, okay? So Bahurim is right outside of Jerusalem, literally just a tad to the east of Jerusalem, okay? So they went and they're near Jerusalem, Ein Rogel. They go a little further, they get to Bahurim, and they go to, there's a house, somebody who's living in Bahurim, they have a well. So they climb into the well. They're hiding from Absalom, who's going to be looking for them to prevent them from joining up with David and giving him word. So the wife of this man, the woman of the house, took a cloth, spread it over the mouth of the well, and scattered groats on top of it so that nothing would be noticed. Okay, basically hid the well. When Absalom's servants came to the woman of the house and asked, "Where are Achimaatz and Jonathan?" the woman told them that they had crossed a bit beyond the water. They searched and found nothing, and they returned to Jerusalem. In many ways, this reminds us of Rahab. Do you remember when Rahab took in the 2 spies that Joshua had sent, and the king finds out about it, and he comes to her looking, and she hides them up in her attic, and then tells the king's men, "Oh, they went this way." And meanwhile, she has them telling them to go in the opposite direction, hide there for 3 days, and only then go back across the Jordan. And that, of course, is what happened. So you have a very similar woman who's a very brave woman. But what does this tell us about this woman? This is a woman or a family who lives in Bahurim. And Bahurim, as I said, is near Jerusalem. But one of the things that's very important about it is in the territory of Benjamin. Keep that in mind. It is in the territory of Benjamin. And she's helping. She's just an ordinary person that you can see David has support amongst the people. Before, when we're talking about Absalom, everything about Absalom is constantly telling us he has all the people of Israel with him. He's gathered all the people, and he has curried favor with all the people of Israel. So you have this picture of a very populist kind of fellow who has done all these things so that he can win the popularity contest. And he's building on that for his support to overthrow David. But now what we're going to see as David is moving along and David is dealing with this situation, but that here and there he's going to find people, not that have a special tie to him, not his relatives or whatever, just people who come forward and help his side. So and we're going to take up with that a little bit once we get to the end of this, okay? So we learned about this woman in the family or whatever from Bahurim. Verse 21, after they were gone, Achimaatz and Jonathan came up from the well and went and informed King David. So the same kind of thing. He'd wait. The men went back to Jerusalem. They now could get out of the well, and they continued to David. They said to David, "Go and cross the water quickly, for Achitophel has advised us and thus concerning you." David and all the troops with him promptly crossed the Jordan, and by daybreak, not one was left who had not crossed the Jordan. So again, they had the ability to cross the Jordan because Hushai had bought them time, as opposed to already having, if they had followed Achitophel's advice, there would already be 12,000 men bearing down on David. But instead, they followed Hushai's advice, and so they had to do a bit of a draft and get all this big army together. And that bought David the time to get across the Jordan. Okay. What happens? Now we're moving back to Achitophel. This is a very interesting story here. When Achitophel saw that his advice had not been followed, he saddled his ass and went home to his native town. He set his affairs in order, and then he hanged himself. He was buried in his ancestral tomb. I think that here's a man who was very smart, very wise. He was David's closest advisor, and he really did give good advice. And he moved over to Absalom's side. And when he did so, he must have assumed that, especially with him at Absalom's side, giving him good advice, Absalom would win. Now, we mentioned before the theory that he was actually Abigail's father, and therefore had a resentment against David. This is not Abigail. excuse me, not Abigail, Bathsheba. He was Bathsheba's father, and therefore had a vested interest. He was upset, angry with David for how he treated his daughter. And even though she ended up becoming queen, of course, but he took advantage of her. He was not appropriate with her by any means, sinned greatly, David. And so it's very obvious then that Achitophel would be angry, and this would be an opportunity for him. But Achitophel is very smart. And so you could say, well, why didn't he walk out on David the minute David, raped or took advantage of Bathsheba? Because what would he gain? He would be a rebel against David. He would be hounded. He would be killed. And so he bides his time. And the point at which he sees that Absalom, who's the son of the king, who's gained popularity, he says, he's got it all going from him. All he needs is my advice. Because if I advise him, he will win. And then I'm in a good place. I got rid of David, but I'm protected because I'm now aligned with the new king of Israel. But as soon as he sees that Absalom is not listening to his advice, he knows it's the end. Absalom is doing the wrong thing. He immediately understood that this was the wrong advice, and he immediately understood that David was going to win in the end, that Absalom could not win. And therefore, what was left for him to do? If he sided himself with Absalom, he's dead. I mean, he's going to be finished. He's going to be defeated. And so Achitophel, would be a star criminal here. He would be one of the biggest traitors against David. David would have him killed, and rightfully so. By taking his own life, he protects his children and his assets. And we talked about this in the past. If somebody is going to be killed by the king because he rebelled against him, then his assets end up going to the king. But here, by committing suicide, what do we say? He set his affairs in order. In other words, he basically he handed out his property to his children. He sets it all in order, and then he kills himself. And so his children are able to continue, and they're not punished in any way, because there was never, there's never going to be any kind of trial or any kind of judgment against Achitophel because he's dead. And he also saves himself, and able to gives himself, or able to secure the fact that he will have a dignified burial. He will be buried in his father's tomb, and not treated, terribly as a rebel against the king. So it's a very sad ending for a person who made a very poor choice. Okay, verse 24. David had reached Machanaim. Machanaim now is on the other side of the Jordan. He has crossed the Jordan. Machanaim is roughly just opposite the mountains of Samaria, okay? It's a little bit north of Shechem. So you're thinking northern Samaria, cross over to the east where Jordan is today. That's where Machanaim is. It's on that side of the Jordan, and it's actually on the mountains of Gilead. Those of you who have been with me at the Three Seas Outlook, or you've seen the film that we did there, when you're standing up there, Three Seas Outlook is just east of Shechem. And if you look east across to the Jordan River, you see the mountains of Gilead. That is where Machanaim is. So that is where David has come. He's gone to Machanaim, the mountains of Gilead. And now we're going to switch. Who are we with now? Absalom. When Absalom and all the men of Israel with him crossed the Jordan. So David has already reached his destination, which is just north of the crossover, okay? But Absalom now has just crossed. So Absalom is behind David. David has, as we said, had a few days advance notice. Absalom had appointed Amasa, army commander, in place of Yoav. Amasa was the son of a man named Yitra, the Israelite, who had married Abigail, daughter of Nachash, and sister of Yoav's mother, Sruya. Okay, now let's get a little bit understanding. Who is this Amasa? Who is this Abigail? This is not Abigail that was David's wife. This is a different Abigail, okay? It says here, Abigail is the daughter of Nachash. Now, who's Nachash? We have met Nachash in the past. Nachash literally means a snake, okay? But we've met the name Nachash in the past as somebody who was connected with Ammon. Okay, it's usually not a Jewish name. So who is this Nachash? And so who do we have? We have Amasa was the son of a man named Itra, the Israelite, who had married Abigail. Abigail's the daughter of Nachash, but she's also the sister of Tzruya. Who is Tzruya? David's sister. So we learn from this that Abigail is there. David actually has two sisters. One is Tzruya, and Tzruya is the mother of Yoav, okay? And he has another sister, Abigail, who is the mother of Amasa, another nephew of David, okay? So first of all, that's very interesting. And it makes sense, though, because Absalom is David's son. So it makes sense that some of David's relatives are going to side with David, but some of David's relatives are going to side with Absalom. And even though Yoav, the son of Tzruya, remains very loyal to David, his first cousin, Amasa, the son of another sister of David, is not. Now, who exactly are these people? How do we get this name Nachash? So just a quick look, if you look at First Chronicles chapter 2, where we have a list of different people, and their progeny, etc. So we have in verse 13, one second. 13, Jesse is, of course, David's father. Jesse begot Eliab, his firstborn, Avinadav the second, Shimea the third, Netanel the fourth, Radai the fifth, Ozan the sixth, David the seventh. Their sisters were Tzruya and Abigail, okay? The sons of Tzruya, Abishai, Yoav, and Asael, and Abigail bore Amasa, and the father of Amasa was Jethro the Ishmaelite. And here we say that he was Jethro or Yitra. In Hebrew, it's Yitra. It's the same name. The Israelite. So the question is he an Ishmaelite or an Israelite? And there's two different theories. One is that he was an Ishmaelite and he converted to become an Israelite. And another is that he was an Israelite to begin with, and we have precedent for this in other places, he actually lived in an area that was part of Ishmael's territory. It was further south, like where Saudi Arabia is today. He had lived there, and that's why he's called an Ishmaelite, even though he was part of Israel. Anyway, another theory is, who is this Nachash then? Nachash is... if we look in let's see. Verse 10, in the same First Chronicles chapter 2, verse 10, Ram begot Aminadav, and Aminadav begot Nachshon, prince of the sons of Judah. So Nachshon is essentially an ancient ancestor of David. And so that's also a question. It could be that Nachash here is actually referring to Jesse, because it says that these are David's sisters, and we know David's father's name is Jesse, not Nachash. So one theory is that it's either Jesse had another name, Nachash, that's more like Nachshon, okay, or that it's not that he's the daughter of Nachshon, but she's the descendant of Nachshon, and it's harking back to original ancestor in the tribe of Judah. So that's just some explanations of who these people are in this. But the most important part of all of that is the fact that we have here not only a civil war between David and his son, but we have a civil war in that the chief of staff of David's camp is Yoav, and the chief of staff of Absalom's camp is his first cousin, Amasa. So not a happy situation, okay? Not a happy situation. And what do we learn? Verse 26, the Israelites and Absalom encamped in the district of Gilead. So here when it talks about Israel or the Israelites, it's talking about Absalom's team, because you'll remember we keep hearing, and all the people of Israel, and all the people of Israel. So we still have this idea, and that Absalom is very much in line with this idea that he has commanded all the people of Israel behind him, and that David is left with just a few. Okay, now what I'd like to do is take a look at, well, let me just finish this, the chapter. When David reached Machanaim, Shovi, the son of Nachash from Rabat Ammon. Now, this is a different Nachash. This indeed is an Ammonite Nachash, okay? And we, in the past, learned about Nachash as the king of Ammon. And this was one of David's enemies. And here we have a situation where he was an enemy, and his son Hanun was somebody that was enemy of David, and he fought against him in those earlier wars soon after David becomes king of all of Israel. But here we have, I guess, his brother, someone named Shovi, and the theory is that he was actually the governor of Rabat Ammon. He may have been a Jew named Nachash, and he may have been connected to the Ammonite king, and he, unlike his brother, swore loyalty to David, and therefore he was somebody that David was using as a governor of that area because he had taken control of that area. From those earlier wars, David had defeated the Ammonites, and therefore he had a governor there. He had somebody there that was helping him and controlling the area. And so it's possible that this is one of the people who meet him. Who else meets him? Machir, the son of Amiel from Lodavar. Machir is a classic name in the tribe of Menashe. That name appears in a number of different instances, going back to an original Machir that leaves Egypt and is part of the tribe of Menashe that is mentioned in the book of Numbers. And one thing we see, by the way, in given families and given tribes, the names repeat. We use the same names over and over again. So Machir, the son of Amiel, is definitely from Menashe, from the tribe of Menashe. He's from a place called Lodavar. Very interesting. Lodavar literally means nothing. Nothing, no thing, no thing. Lo is no, davar is thing, nothing. Okay, so but it's the name of a place. But you have to wonder what the underlying meaning is. And then there's somebody else, Barzillai, who was a Gileadite. He's from Gilead, from a place called Roglim. Okay, now these places that we've mentioned, Lodavar, Machanaim, and Roglim, are all east of the Jordan River in the area of the Gilead Mountains. Okay, the Gilead is within the tribe of Menashe. Okay, and what do? They come to David and they're helping him. They present him with couches, basins, and earthenware. Also wheat, barley, flour, parched grain, beans, lentils, parched grain, honey, curds, a flock, and cheese from the herd for David and the troops with him to eat. For they knew that the troops must have grown hungry, faint, and thirsty in the wilderness. So first of all, this description of David's men as being hungry and tired is exactly the description that Achitophel talks about David's men when he suggests that Absalom take advantage of this weakness and run. And of course, he doesn't run after David right away. But given that he bought what by following Hushai's advice, he takes longer, buys David time. And what we see in this verse is the transformation of David and his men from tired and weak, maybe depressed, down to what will become a fighting force. And you'll see in the first verse of chapter 18, what does it say? David mustered the troops. We see starting in chapter 18 that David is already starting with military strategy. He divides the whole group into 3 different teams. Each one has its commander, and he's already preparing for war. And this is the difference. He has these people that come out and greet him, not only providing him with moral support. Okay, David, you may think that the whole nation is standing with Absalom, but no, we are people that are with you. We saw evidence of this one little family, that was in Bahurim, and they supported by hiding, Jonathan and Achimaatz. There was already some support there, but here we have a whole delegation of people who are all from the area of Gilead, and they come and support. Now, what I would like to review is what we're seeing here, although you may not realizing it, we're seeing here a very interesting phenomenon. Who are these people that are coming and helping David? And in general, who are the people that David has encountered as he's left and until he gets to this point? Okay, and what we'll see is they all have a connection with Benjamin, with the tribe of Benjamin. Now, who is Benjamin? Benjamin is the tribe of Saul. And this is very, very significant. Okay, so let's go in order. So first of all, when David first leaves Jerusalem, he encounters, and we did this already in the past, he encounters two different people. First person he encounters is Siva. Siva is the servant of Mephibosheth, and Mephibosheth is the sole surviving son of Jonathan, grandson of Saul, that David has protected. And what we noted there is that Siva then makes, when David says, well, where's Mephibosheth? Siva says, oh no, he joined Absalom, which we know is an utter lie. Okay, but here we have a situation where we have somebody trying to present to David as if Mephibosheth, the grandson of Saul, a Benjamite, has turned his back against David. The next person he meets is Shimei, son of Gera, who curses him, and he curses him in the name of the house of Saul. Again, another Benjamite. So these two situations create, I assume, create an impression in David that, well, all those, go back to my historic fight against Saul and the tribe of Benjamin. Here we are again. The first thing that happens to challenge my authority and my kingship is going to come from Benjamin, and they're going to join up with Absalom because, well, what do you expect? They're from Saul, or they're loyal to Saul. But then we have, in the verse we just read, in verse 27, we meet these people who are all, we meet Shovi ben Nachash, okay, which is, okay, put that aside for a second. We meet this guy Machir, who is clearly, he's from Gilead, but he also has the name of a tribe of Manasseh, okay? And this is the same guy. If we look at where have we met Machir before, oh, don't tell me I didn't write where it was. Wait, let me just see if I...
Chapter 9, verse 4.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we met him before. Yes. Did we? Chapter 9. Oh, here we are. Yes. What do we know about this guy, Machir ben Ammiel? We've met him before at the point at which David first learns about Mephibosheth. That's the last surviving son of Jonathan. Where is he? And we see, look at verse 3. The king continues, is there anyone at all left of the house of Saul with whom I can keep faith as pledged before God? Siba answered the king, yet there is still a son of Jonathan whose feet are crippled. Where is he? The king asked. And Siba said to the king, he is in the house of Machir, son of Ammiel, in Lodavar. And that place that means nothing. Okay. So it's not just the same guy, it's the same place. Okay. So this fellow is not just somebody who's from the tribe of Manasseh, but he has been extremely involved in protecting Mephibosheth, who is a descendant of Saul of the house of Benjamin, okay? The tribe of Benjamin. Okay, so how do these all come together? Now I want to focus on some of these places, okay? Bahurim. If you look at Bahurim was the place where Shimei, the son of Gera, when he came out cursing David, okay, and we just saw that, where is it? Whatever. Here we go. It's in chapter 15. No, chapter 16. Chapter 16, verse 5. As King David was approaching Bahurim, a member of Saul's clan, a man named Shimei, son of Gera. So he's going to Bahurim, but that's exactly where the person, he is saved in Bahurim. This woman with the well who saves the people of David, from that same place of Bahurim, which is a place in Benjamin, comes Shimei, who's the one who's cursing him. So even though you see a situation where Shimei is really, a Benjamite, in that same place in Benjamin, you have this family that is helping David's men and making sure they get to him safely. Okay. Now, Machanaim. Machanaim is where David is now. Machanaim is also mentioned in chapter 2, verse 8. 1 second, I think. Yeah, chapter 2, verse 8. And this is the place where Ishbosheth, let's see, Abner, the son of Ner, Saul's army commander, had taken Ishbosheth, son of Saul, and brought him across to Machanaim and made him king over the Gilead, the Asherites, Jezreel, Ephraim, and Benjamin. So Ishbosheth, who was going to be that puppet king that Abner puts up after Saul's killed to maintain the civil war against David and to try to stop David from becoming king of all of Israel, he is from Machanaim. That's where they settle, okay? So you see that Machanaim itself was the headquarters of the king from the house of Saul. And now it's a place where David is feeling safe, where David is able to set up camp, okay? What is the connection? I think we talked to this before, the connection between the Gilead, in particular, the tribe of Manasseh. We remember perhaps and we don't have to look at this now, but at the very end of the book of Judges, that horrible story of the concubine, that becomes this whole civil war, okay? At the end of that, the nation of Israel swears that they're not going to give their daughters to any man from Benjamin, except there's this one exception, and that is the people of Yavesh Gilad. People from Manasseh, Yavesh Gilad, and there's some men there that were never part of that oath, and therefore they end up marrying some of the surviving men of Benjamin, which means these people from Gilead, okay, and the people from Benjamin are cousins. And that creates the first connection between the house of Saul. Later on, when Saul takes office, when he first becomes king, those same people in Yavesh Gilad are threatened by Nachash, the king of Ammon, okay? And Saul comes to their rescue. So there's a very close connection now between the house of Saul and Gilead. But I think it's fascinating, even though we have these two small examples, the Tziva example, and who tries to make it out as if Mephibosheth is against David when he's not. And we have, of course, Shimi ben Gera, but in truth, Benjamin as a whole, all these different examples that we have, Benjamin and Benjamin's close allies of Manasseh, these are the people who step up and support David. Okay, and I think this is very, very significant. The people that, if you think about it, the people who are, the people who are most likely to have sided with Absalom don't. They end up being, so what is past is past. David has made peace with the nation of Israel, went out of his way. Ishbosheth is killed, but David doesn't want him killed, okay? David is very upset when Ishbosheth is killed. Abner is killed, and David is very upset that Abner is killed. And David has gone out of his way to take Mephibosheth in under his wing. He must have sent a very strong message to the people of Benjamin that David, bears no grudge against the house of Saul. And so when David now is in need, it is those people who are either part of the tribe of Benjamin or are very closely connected with the house of Saul that for the most part are supporting him, not against him. So we see that Shimi is really an unusual one. But we also see that it's Absalom who comes to Gilead, and it is where the battle is taken out. And I'm assuming that when Absalom chooses to chase David all the way to Gilead, he's confident that the Gileadites will be with him because of that age-old split between Saul, the Benjamites, and David, but he's wrong. And I think this verse, in verse 27, is so important in all of 27, 28, 29, because it sets the stage, as we said here, not only for the transition from David's people from being tired and hungry to having the strength to plan the battle, which we will see in chapter 18, but it also marks the fact that Absalom got it all wrong. Okay, that these people that we would have most expected to side with Absalom are actually going to be David's biggest supporters. Okay, and also makes us understand that David was truly the king of Israel. He was the one who truly succeeded in bringing the house of Saul and the backers of the house of Saul and all the nation of Israel into his kingdom. So just because Absalom has won the popularity contest, it's skin deep. Okay. And the people who have joined him are people that are saying, he's the winner. He's popular. He's handsome. He's got beautiful hair. I don't know what. But at the end of the day, it is the people who really understand, what do you need to be a king? And you need the person who is wise, who is able to bring the nation together, who is able to fight the battles and win them. All of this is the qualities of the king. And I believe that what these verses are telling us is this is how David, ended up coming back. And of course, with God's help, and God makes it very clear he's on his side. But if you look at the level of, ground level, the regular level, the way politics works, the way people work, at the end of the day, David has built strong foundations in the nation of Israel, and that's why they come back to him. Any questions?
Do you think that maybe it's also because they had the knowledge of the relationship between Jonathan and David and saw that very close friendship, and that David was always loyal to Jonathan's descendants? There was a very sort of visceral love there, wasn't there, between those two as brothers? And the people.
Well, there was definitely a tremendous relationship. We don't know how much the ordinary people saw. The people in the court would have seen that. But what they would have seen is that Mephibosheth, the sole surviving son of Jonathan, is in the court. David has brought him in and provides his every need. And so they would have seen that. But they, there was tremendous. I think they would have understood. I mean, David united the kingdom. He really and truly united the kingdom, and he defeated the enemies from all over, including Ammon. And Ammon was threatening Gilead. It's their neighbor. So that's another thing that you can put into the piece, that David was truly protecting all of Israel and was not acting, as I only care about Judah. In other words, he was trying to erase all those different tribal loyalties and bring the nation together.
As you say, he did not bear a grudge.
Right.
Yeah.
He really did.
I don't know whether this is stretching it a bit, but I see a connection between the events that we've just been discussing and Psalm 23. In particular, a couple of verses. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me, thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. And in particular, thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies, thou anointest my head with oil. I don't know, this could be Mahanaim.
You're thinking that this spread a table for me in full view of my enemies is these people from Gilead who come out and give him the bread and the food and everything as the enemies are. It's very possible. That's wonderful. I never thought of that.
And the valley of the shadow of death, of course, he's walking down the Kidron Valley. He's trying to escape.
Right.
And so I see.
But not only that, the shadow of death, you could also take it further down to Jericho. Which is way down, it's like, well, we think of the Dead Sea as being the Dead Sea because there's like no life there, but Jericho is an oasis, but going down to that area that is an elevation below sea level and such a desert and area, that could also be, he had to walk through that area to get across and then to the more fertile area of Gilead. And, that's also very, very positive. Excellent. Beautiful. Anyone else have a question or an insight I'd like to share? Okay. So, we will meet again. Let's see, where are we in December? Okay. So we are today, today's the 11th of December. We will meet normally next week. On the 18th, we're meeting again. And then we will have 2 weeks off, okay? We will not be meeting on the 25th, which is Christmas, but it's also Hanukkah. And we will not be meeting on the 1st, which is New Year's, and still Hanukkah. So all of our holidays seem to come together. So we will be taking off those 2 Wednesdays. Next week, we're meeting as normal. And of course, we'll send emails out with all those reminders. Okay, thanks so much. Have a great day, rest of the week, etc.